Well, hello and welcome everybody. This is a follow-up to our self-managed super fund webinar that we had just 2 weeks ago, and had some fantastic feedback. Around 300 people have logged in to look at that webinar since, most likely because of your expertise, Glenn. But we did have a lot of people that asked us if we could possibly do a case example. So today it's going to be a short webinar, maybe 20-25 minutes, hopefully. Yep. Maybe a little bit longer if we do.
See how we go.
Yeah, but we're going to actually do a case study. So let's get cracking, as we've got to go through a few things each and every time. So firstly, this is again what we did last time, but I have to put this up. The advice contained in the document is of general nature and does not constitute specific financial advice. For me, I'm not a financial advisor. You are.
Yes.
But I am not. We'll cover you in a moment. I'm not an accountant. I need accountants, and we all need accountants, but we need them to do their specific job. I do hold a full estate agent's licence, this one here, 073198L. Again, the only reason I hold that is because if I'm talking in any way about property, ASIC require me to have that real estate agent's licence. So pretty much that's me. This is you.
This is mine. Yep, I am a financial planner. I am not a real estate agent or an accountant. My general advice warning basically says that everything that we're talking about is of general nature. It's not specific advice. For me to give specific advice, I would have to get to know you a lot better and go through a full process. So anything that we talk about today, don't go and act on yourself. Go and speak to your professionals before you do anything.
Today's agenda, I'm going to do a bit of an introduction of myself and you again, which we'll talk about. I'll quickly go through the basics of Logic Property Wealth. That's the basics of property that I've been presenting and teaching people for 20 years. We'll talk about how people retire. Again, we're in the self-managed super fund webinar, so it's very important that we see where people are going and how important that is. I'm going to talk about my structure to duplicate. Again, it's outside of self-managed super, but again, it's just relevant for how we actually choose property for capital growth and cash flow. And then we're going to talk about an example of a recent self-managed super fund purchase through us. Quickly, who are we? Logic Property Wealth Australia. Look, I've been doing this since 1997 through a couple of entities. Effectively, I've been able to, lucky enough to be, present to 15,000 or more people, over my journey. I suppose the most important thing here is what I talk about is not just theory. It's actually been tried and tested and proven by myself and my clients, many times over. Who are you?
I'm a licensed financial advisor, as I said earlier. I'm the director and head financial planner at CMW Financial Services. We've been going for about 8 or 9 years now, but I've been a financial advisor for about 20 years. We work with all types of clients. I've probably helped, at least hundreds over the years.
There you go.
I think it goes into more about that now.
20 years, passion, which is great. And your breakfast and kill.
I do, try to play golf. Not good at either.
Let's quickly go property specific, okay? I know we've heard this a lot. Look, it was great. A month ago, I did a webinar for Logic Property Wealth Australia just on what we teach in our basic structure. And we've had over 1,500 hits on that from our YouTube. So the main point from what we talk about is that land is the commodity of the asset that appreciates, and all buildings depreciate. It's an accounting fact in this country that a building lasts for 40 years. We can write off the depreciation of a building, 100% of the building costs over a 40-year period. So, what that means is the type of property that we're going into very much has a solid land component, minimum of 30 to 40% land value of the unit each and every time. So, it's very important that people listen to this, understand that. Then you might have a bit of this, actual people retire. It's pretty scary, isn't it?
It is, we touched on this last time. Most people retirement and live off, very little. So the stats there are showing that most people live below $25,000 a year. There's not too many people that I see retiring at the moment with lots of money. So, you know, over the years, long time ago, they didn't have their employers paying into their super fund. And that generation that's retiring now, the baby boomers, haven't had all the advantages that we have today. So the group of people who are retiring at the moment aren't retiring on a lot of money, and a lot of them rely on government pensions to make up their income.
It is true, though, isn't it, that the percentages of the people of how they're retiring, it's not going to change. It might even get worse.
No, it's not looking good. The government's just pulled back on a few things too in the budget. So, yeah, look, people have got to do something early. Most people haven't up until now, and it's probably going to be the same in years to come. It's about 5 or 10% of people that retire with anything that's, you know, going to last them the rest of their life, which is not a lot.
And a lot of the time, it's not just the people who earn really high incomes.
No. It's interesting. They've done a lot of studies on this, but yeah, it's usually the people that start early, you know, that take it seriously for a longer period of time, that contribute to their super. Yeah, generally they're people that are successful in other areas as well. But yeah, wealth doesn't always, you know, line up with a good superannuation balance.
Those statistics are scary.
They are.
We don't put them up there to scare people, but what we're putting them up there is to say to people, listen, if you're not going to take action, that's where you're going to end up.
It's showing you that under 1% of the people that retire earn $75,000 a year or more. Now, a lot of people that, you know, the average wage I think is 50-something thousand at the moment. So, you know, that's saying that hardly anyone's going to retire on $75,000 a year or more for the rest of their life, which is, you know, it's not a lot of money.
Look, I'm assuming that a lot of people recognise this, and that's why they're coming to you to get advice in regards to do I set up my own self-manage? Is it better? Can I do this? Blah blah blah. Yeah,
they're starting to. Yeah, we're seeing a huge increase in that. Self-managed super funds are a lot more popular than they were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
People are living longer too. Just back on this, people are living a lot longer, so their money's got to last a lot longer. So I think they're starting to realise that with modern technology and medicines and things that if you retire at 65 and you live to 90, you know, that's a long time to live with no income. So, you know, no additional employment income to add to it. So you've really got to do something before you get to 65 to try and make it last.
Let's keep moving. I think people have got the point from that. They've got to do something.
And we spoke about that last time as well.
And look, I'm not just talking about doing things in a self-managed super in their superannuation. In most cases, people have got to do things outside of their superannuation.
Both very important.
But what today we're talking about is an advantage that people can take.
It is, yeah.
This is my wealth triangle, talking about what we focus on, and we're teaching people how to set up a passive wealth building structure. Now, a lot of people want to be involved and they're active. That's fine, but if you're active, you're trading and you're getting rid of an asset, and to get wealth, you've got to have the benefits of compound growth.
Yep.
Obviously use leverage, right? But get the benefits of compound growth. So for us, we know for a fact that if you don't get capital growth, you're not going anywhere.
No.
Because money, you can't grow the money side of things. You get taxed on it, and it goes down in value over time.
Yeah. And the cost of living's going up too, so people are spending more. So.
And this is where most people go wrong with property, is they get, you know, conned into believing that any type of property will give an average growth. It's not. Remember, it's only the land component that goes up. And that's what we're focusing on with our properties, including the self-managed super fund type property.
Yep.
Of course, you've got to have reliable cash flow. And for us, once we've got that in place, then it allows us. This is not inside a super, this is outside. It allows us to duplicate using the equity growth, reborrowing it, adding on another. And if people want to go back and look at my webinar from a month or so ago, what they'll see is that I'm suggesting they need to hold, outside of their own principal place of residence, a minimum of 5 or 6 properties for a full cycle to enable their loan to value ratio, you know, their, from their value to their debt to be about 50%. Otherwise, you know, they've got no hope. So, you know,
super's a good way to add another property.
It sure is.
Most people don't buy 5 properties in one go, do they? They kind of do it over a period of time.
Very rarely anyone does. I've had a few, but very, very rarely, because people can't afford to do that.
That's right. You've got to get into one and then use that to get into the next one, and so on.
So the wealth triangle, we talk about our criteria for duplication. I'm not going to go through all this, But look, we focus on capital growth and cash flow, the demographics. These are all for security, staying to a capital city, going to an area where people want to live, choosing where they want to live, making sure the finance is correct each and every time. For those people that are looking at this, I'm not going to go through it all specifically, but if you want a copy of this, please email us or contact us, and we'll get this out to you straight away. But look, what we're doing here is we're talking about the McDonald's principle: keep it affordable.
Yeah.
If you need to sell it, you've got more chances of people being able to buy it. But more importantly, we need income. So keep the rental income affordable, and you've always got a much better chance of having it tenanted all the time.
Yep.
This is an interesting one. We had this last time. This is that from Costello. Do you want to have a quick chat about that?
Just briefly. It's an article that Peter Costello wrote saying that there's a lost generation of superannuation people or clients that because of the global financial crisis back in 2007, 2008, where most people's superannuation was too highly leveraged into the Australian share market and international share markets. Those people haven't recovered at the moment. Anyone sort of 10 years out from retirement, or anyone that was in retirement at that point, is really hurting at the moment because they're just not getting anywhere with their superannuation, and they're not going to make up that lost ground.
My sister and brother-in-law were at that retirement stage.
Yeah.
And they'd had a substantial portfolio.
Yeah, nest egg.
Mind you, they worked for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But they lost 40%.
Yeah, that's pretty typical.
40%. And so all of a sudden they had to completely reshuffle all of their goals and their whole. It was just amazing.
And I think it was a lot of the balanced funds. I might have mentioned this last time. People that thought they had a balanced investment was really about 70% in share markets, and that's quite high when things go wrong. It's good when things go well, but in the really bad times, that'll set you back a long way.
The interesting part about this article from Costello is that the bottom part there, or the last part, it was saying, which is quite hard to believe, the stock market at the moment is still 30% down on where it was in 2008, pre-GFC. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it was 6,800, the All Ordinaries, just before where it really started. When Lehman Brothers went under, it got right down to 3,000 something, and now we're back up to around 5,300. So it's still a good 1,400 points off the peak of where it's been.
Okay, so just real quickly on that.
Yep.
You're the expert. If people are putting in, deposits for their property for self-managed super,
yes,
there certainly could be little bits left over, or it might be a lot, depending on what people have got.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be some opportunity in the stock market.
There is, yeah. I mean, we advise clients on property and shares, so we're not aligned to any one particular area, but the share market is undervalued according to typical valuation models, but it's still not going up. It's gone sideways. I mean, it's gone up from where its lows were back in 2009 or whatever, I think was the bottom, but it's still not back to where people were before that, and it's still not going up in any great dramatic fashion at the moment. There's probably more downward pressure than up at the moment. There's more negative than positive.
Okay, sure. Yeah, and that's a little bit scary.
It is, with Greece and Europe and China, slowing down a little bit. All these things are, and America and Donald Trump might be the president. There's all these things that the share market doesn't like, they're putting a lid on it, stopping it from growing. Okay,
so just quickly, one more question on this.
Yeah,
I know I want to get onto this example, but just quickly, how are the banks seeing it? In the past, you could get 50% on blue chip shares, for leverage.
Yeah.
I mean, can you still get that type of thing today?
Yeah, you can. The interest rate's higher. Their lending ratios are on that individual stock. So on a bank stock, you might get more than you would on a mining stock, for example.
Right,
so it depends on the sector, depends on, what their feeling is on that particular company. But what you could borrow 5-10 years ago is a lot more than what you can borrow these days.
Sure.
Yeah, so they don't like lending against share portfolios because of the volatility.
And we can understand that.
And they have margin calls on that. So if it drops and your value drops, you've got to tip more money in, or they close it all down. It doesn't happen.
We'll go into this case study.
Yeah, sure.
Just on that though, the property market cycles, but also the finance market cycles, and we see that working with the property market. I mean, the banks control the affordability of property in this country.
They control the property market. Really.
Of course they do, right? So, but we see a change around because the banks tighten their criteria, and then they're not getting in much loans, so they loosen it a little bit, and they, their deposits, they, sometimes this, and the valuations change, or the scrutiny. Does it happen with the share market as well? I mean, is it something similar?
When lending on shares, do you mean?
Yeah,
it does. It's more about the bank's position at the time and their also their view of the share market. Okay. So it's based on volatility with the share market. When the volatility is high, so that means if the share market goes up 200 points one day and down 200 the next, they don't like that because that means that there's a good chance it could drop dramatically or go up dramatically. So they like it to be steady. So at a time when, as I said before, there's problems in Europe and there's zero interest rates around the world, there's a reason for that. It's because the economies aren't growing and they're trying to stimulate the economy. So that's not the best time for banks to be lending against shares because they're worried that if things get worse, people just walk away from their loans and they don't pay back the money they owe. So that's their risk.
Well, Logic Property Wealth Australia is a property company, so let's have a look at this.
Yeah, let's talk about property. But there is some opportunities in the share market.
I'm sure there would be.
Question, yeah.
Okay, this is a fictitious name, but it is actually a case of our most relevant, or one of our most relevant ones.
For privacy reasons, we had to change the name.
Of course. Ashley and Stephen Jones, 44, 47, married, combined income of 165, contributions of 15,000 a year or thereabouts, combined balance of super fund balance of 280, and their goal was to retire at 65. Now, that's real basic stuff, but this is what you have to do before they can do anything in getting in, correct?
Yeah, it is, yes. This is a statement of advice. We've sort of reduced the size of it just for the purpose of this webinar, but this one was, I think, was 71 pages when we looked at it.
It's in-depth, isn't it?
It's very in-depth, yeah. And you just want to go through the process a little bit of how it works. So we would meet the clients and we would go through a thorough investigation of who they are, where they're at, what they want to do, what their goals are, their objectives, how many kids they've got, all their assets, liabilities, just get to know absolutely everything about them. Because we have one of the rules around financial advisors is you have to know your client. So the way we do that is by just getting every little piece of information we can. That's then used to produce this statement of advice, which I just held up. And this is presented to the client based on all the information we got from them in that first meeting. This is the contents. I can just go through, the kind of things that, we present to people. We sort of reiterate what we talked about originally. So the first bit's about them, what they told us, who they are, what they want to achieve. So we've gone through, why are you here? What are you wanting to do? It's usually around wealth creation. I want to retire on more money. I want to put my kids through private schools. I want to protect my family, all those kind of things. We then go through the outcomes, what they can achieve, whether it's achievable or not, prioritise the goals. We then go through strategy. So that's our advice section, which is, it might be one strategy, it might be a combination of strategies. When we're talking about buying a property in super, then that's the main strategy of this document. There might also be, some insurance or something else in estate planning. But, generally this statement of advice is around, this is what it looks like for you to buy this property inside a self-managed super fund. And we'll probably go into it a bit more detail, but it's the process from start to finish of what they need to know. And
I see on here you really go into depth to ensure, like it says here, your acknowledgement, and the client's acknowledgement of gearing into super. So you're explaining it exactly again, step by step, how it all works, so they know the risks and the etc.
Yeah, we're licensed. We're audited very heavily on this, so we've got to make sure that everything we put to a client is completely compliant. Everything gets checked. They need to sign off to say that they're happy with. They understand what they're doing and what they're getting into. And that's why it's 71 pages, so it's quite in-depth.
Yeah, it is. Hey, do you want to we'll quickly talk about risks?
Yeah.
Because, it's something that is important.
Yeah. Risks in buying property.
Well, we're going to talk about the property, this case study. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
But, look, from my side of things, you say to me, okay, here's the client, here's the structure, etc., etc. From my side of things, and for our property that we're looking at, firstly, new property takes away a lot of the risk and the costs of maintenance and problems that people inherit. So there's some advantages. There's tax advantages. There's a whole heap of idea. But the problem is most people, what they do is that they go and because of ASIC's requirement of a one contract, they buy apartments. And the land content is less than 10%. So look, all apartments go down before they go up. I mean, that's the reality of it. So we're taking out a risk from our side of things, and we'll see it in this example we're going to show. But we're sticking in the affordable bracket, so they've got reliable income. We're making sure they've got a minimum of 30, 40, 50% land component of their investment. And then what you've done is ensure that their deposit and their costs, or I should say, well, their borrowings against the rental income and what they're getting in from super, it ensures that it costs them zero to hold the property.
We have to build in buffers too. So we have to look at if interest rates go up by 2%, can they afford that increase? I mean, there's risks in everything, but the kind of risks that we're talking about here also are risks in other things. So you could lose your job. If there's two incomes and the wife gets pregnant, then you're down to one. So all those kind of things you got to look at. If you're planning on getting pregnant, then don't count both incomes. Always factor in an interest rate increase, no matter how high they are. So we look at all these buffers just to make sure what happens if the worst happens, can you still afford it?
The main risk is that, and this is a real big one with apartments, is that because we know that from the time people contract on a property, they put their 10% down. Sometimes it takes 2 and 3 years before the property is completed. Now that's a risk because people could lose their job or change scenario and not have the capacity at that time. And who knows, what they've contracted on, whether it will value at the
it comes back to the bank valuations and also the supply and demand in apartments can easily get overheated. So there's lots of apartments going up in the one area at the one time. So we're in Melbourne. South Bank is a typical example where there's been a lot go up. Docklands, sorry, I meant to say Docklands.
More going up.
And some of the banks won't lend on them now. They've just said no more borrowing. So if you bought one 2 years ago and you're expecting to get finance now, because you might get a pre-approval, but they don't have to honour that. So now you've got to go back and try and get finance, and some banks aren't actually lending, then you're in trouble. Well,
let's go on to this this example because effectively what we'll be able to see here is...
It leads to a lot of the things we're talking about.
So look, here's the one single contract. It's a basic house. This is one was only 8 or so kilometres out of the Brisbane CBD. Brisbane area, simply because the gurus believe that the next 5 years that's where the biggest growth will be. But it's a land-based one, 405 square metres, but it's very strong rental income here of 520 to 540 against a $650,000 property. So effectively, a 30% deposit here. With interest rates where they are at the moment, albeit they're a little bit higher, is that right?
They are in self-managed.
A little bit, but even still, this is going to cost them basically nothing to hold. And if it is something, then the contributions from their
employment,
is going to make sure that it's they're not putting anything.
And that's all worked out in the statement of advice that we were talking about earlier. So all those projections we would put to them.
So this is a single contract, which means all of the costs of the build is actually contributed by the builder, because remember the self-managed super, or the owner of that as such, they're not paying until settlement the 90%.
They're not allowed to use borrowed money. It's got to be what's called a single acquirable asset. So the only way to do this is to use borrowed money at the end.
And I should state for people that are looking at this, it's very rare that they can get this type of property because the builders don't want to do this.
I was going to say, you've obviously got to build it.
I've got many. Not many. Sorry, that's not true. I've got a few of them that I can say, okay, I've got a client here, and they'll source this and they'll put it in together. Normally you'd be paying it slab, and you'd be paying it frame, and you would be paying it, at lock up, etc.
And you draw down from your bank loan to do that.
Well, this time obviously you're not. This is the exact property that we've got as our example. And then completed. It's at completion stage at the moment. So, look where it is. Just proximity. It's only 8 or so kilometres from the heart of the city. Meets all of my criteria that we spoke about before. It's a fantastic opportunity for our clients. Predominantly residential area, population, growing. And
ticks all the boxes.
Well, it does. Schools, shops, transport, all that sort of thing. The growth has been continuing. Whereas the Brisbane market has been fairly flat. For the last 4 or 5 years in this area, house and land has actually had strong growth, specifically from close to the CBD. Brisbane again, for the people obviously don't know, third most populous city, large population, 2.3 million. The first thing on that, on my structure to duplicate, which if people want, they can email us. It says, don't invest in an area unless you've got 1 million people. Why? For variation of jobs, and who knows what's in front of us economically with unemployment as such. So
that's
stay
away from regional areas.
Never go into a regional market. The mines are a perfect example. Clients, I'm in here and it's going great. Now, they're worth literally a quarter or a fifth of what people bought.
They're on 60 minutes.
Yeah. Well, they are. But the worst part about it is they were getting $800 and $900 a week.
Yeah, not good at the start.
Now they can't get $100 a week rent for them. So
it's one industry town.
They're going bankrupt. They've got to go bankrupt because they just can't afford to make the repayments. It's not a good thing. If you want to get started and do this, how do I get started? What is the procedure from here? Well, look, effectively contact us, email us. Give us a call, Logic Property Wealth Australia. I'll connect you up with Glenn. There's his email address, my email address. But effectively, look, that's pretty much what it is. Contact us, and we'll sit down and have a discussion.
Yeah.
My first thing is obviously going to be bringing you into the equation if people are contacting me.
Yep.
But certainly, there's a lot of explanation. Yep. But look, it's a huge market. It's growing. We don't know what's going to happen with changes to gearing and what's going to happen with super in the future because, who knows who's going to be in government. But one thing we do know is that no matter what the tax is going to be on, from people at retirement from their self-managed super, whether it's in property or it's in gold or it's in cash or it's from the shares, whatever it is, you're still better off leveraging and building it here. Building it while you can.
Yeah, no, property's much more consistent and less volatile than all other asset classes. So, and it's a long-term thing, and so superannuation, so it fits really well. I think the example we had, they were 40-something years old, so that gives them a couple of property cycles to go through. So by the time they're 65, hopefully it's double. You'd think in that time it would have. The rent's gone up a lot, so and they may have paid off the loan. So they've got a property in there that will continue to go up for the rest of their lives and pay them an income in retirement.
For those people who are interested, it might be also worthwhile going back and having a look at the other link for our presentation or webinar 2 weeks ago, because we cover all those points.
Yeah, this is an extension of that one.
Yeah, no doubt. So it might be worth having a look at that. And also, please go back and have a look at our Logic Property Wealth webinar on just our basic structure and what we've been teaching for 20 odd years. Hey, thanks, Glenn.
No problem. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Appreciate
and hope I can get you back in to talk about something else in regards to
love to.
Planning and estate planning or whatever it may be. I think it's certainly people enjoy your expertise. So I do appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for logging on. I hope you've enjoyed the webinar. Please contact us if you want any of our brochures in regards to self-managed super fund. If you want a copy of my criteria for duplication, I also have another document which I've written, which is called The Logic of Property Valuations, and just another company one that I've written, which is about 12 or 14 pages on questions to know. Questions that people have asked me in regards to everything to do with investment property and the structure involved in purchasing. Thanks for looking on. I hope very much that you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Cheers.